webinar, the Control Tower Advantage. We're going to talk about Control Tower, which is a new product of Flexport. And what it essentially is that, you want all your data in one place, but you don't always want to have one service provider doing your logistics. So Control Tower gives you that layer on top of all service provider to give you that visibility, agility, and therefore better decision making. But before we go there, a couple of housekeeping items. What you see here on your screen, on the right side, there is a navigation, or there is a bar which says chat and Q&A. If you need any help during the webinar, chat with us. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A tab. We will try to answer all questions by the end, but it might, time permitting. Now, in the top nav, there are two other important pieces. Download slides, where you can download the slide deck of today. And I really want to draw your attention to the webinar feedback. We always love your feedback, how we can make our webinars better, how we can make our company better. So if you have a minute, leave us feedback. A brief legal note, keep in mind that all this information is provided based on the situation at this current time and might not be specific to your business requirements. So if you want to know more, I always recommend reach out to a Flexport expert and they can tailor our solution or our recommendations to your business. Joining me today, the all-star team of the Control Tower. In the middle, CK, he's our global head of Control Tower and Ocean Consolidations. And then on the right, Ece, who is our regional Control Tower manager for Europe and also oversees Ocean Consolidations. Let's go to the next one. For today, the agenda. We can't start any webinar these days without briefly touching on the tariffs. We'll keep it short, but at least you have the latest and the greatest. But then we'll go into the Control Tower, why we built this, what are the advantages. We'll show you some real use cases of customers, and we'll end up with a Q&A. Let's go to the next one and briefly touch on the tariffs. All right. Well, the latest on the tariffs, nothing has changed. There's some details that have changed over the last week. But what is really important for the next week is that there will be a lot of change. De minimis, the e-commerce clearance will officially be over by May 2nd, which is next week. So that's why you also saw quite a few e-commerce companies in the last week raising their prices, because the orders that are coming in right now will be sold, with duties applied to it. So it's over for the de minimis into the US. When talking about the reciprocity, that is continuing. We're in the negotiation phase. We expect that there will be a deal with China anytime soon. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The two countries can't live without each other. If there won't be a deal, we will have an inflation shock. A lot of SMBs will go out of business, unfortunately. And manufacturing will come to a standstill because there's no parts. So there needs to be a deal. Those deals typically are announced on a Chinese public holiday. There is one on Thursday, so that's my hope for now, if you're listening, Ron Vera. But we anticipate there will be a deal in the coming weeks between China and the US. EU has been waiting with their countermeasures till the negotiations further progress. Let's go to the next slide. Here, quickly on a timeline, let's not look too far out, but there's a couple of important dates here. As I already said, May 2nd on the termination of the de minimis. And then we're also talking about the auto parts one, which is on May 3rd. Further out, it's all about the negotiation. So let's not put too much value into those dates. But there is, we're now so many days into the 90 days, let's say, ceasefire, which will expire somewhere early July. Good. Let's go to the next slide. I think what's important is for all of you, and we would like to do a little poll, is we're seeing pretty dramatic action of a lot of customers, right? There is business uncertainty is the worst place for entrepreneurs to be in and for business owners. So what we do actually see is a lot of orders being canceled, people in the wait and see mode, waiting for clarity. Because if there's clarity, you'll make decisions again. If there's no clarity, you're just in a wait and see in a kind of like a paralyzed mode. We would like to know from you, what are you doing in this situation? So we have a little poll here. Are you seeing or planning to shift any shipments from Asia to the US to other routes, for instance, Asia to Europe? Couple of answers here. You can read them out, read them yourself, but it's yes, we are already shifting. Yes, we are planning. No, no, but we're evaluating, or it's not applicable for me. I'll give you a minute, and then we're jumping into the control tower topic for today. All right, CK, why don't you take over?
Good morning. It's a very good morning here in Seattle, 7 a.m. So let's start with control tower. And, based on what you just talked about, the tariffs, let's just start with, what the current reality is. The fact is that, what we are facing right now is going to be the new normal. It's just not a phase anymore. And supply chains are going to get increasingly more complex, right? And that's going to become something that all companies, especially if you're a large organization, you have to start dealing with. Having said that, diversification of your supply chain is no longer an option, and all companies are looking at, setting up bases in different parts of the world to be able to service the world. And that creates more complexity. So the first thing is that the new tariffs are going to create more complex supply chains. As a result of that, I also think that consolidation becomes much more important, because we need to have a supply chain in which we maximize the container utilization, at the same time start, sending shipments to avoid stockouts. So that becomes a second thing that we will see companies do a lot more. Then thirdly, supplier management becomes complex, because as you are starting to expand your supply chain in different parts of the world, you are going with some suppliers just on contracts, some suppliers that we are onboarding new. We see customers do that everywhere. And so managing them in one place and seeing visibility is something which is increasingly becoming more important, right? Also, at the same time, as companies are starting to sign direct contracts with carriers, as well as have contracts with several freight forwarders, having a very clear visibility across different contracts is important, right? Because you want to make sure, as you see these tariffs come on some of the Chinese manufactured vessels, as well as your other contract allocation, you want to see how it's utilized, whether you're sort of completing all your commitments on this side. And then lastly, the most important thing is, from your purchase order all the way to the customer, there has to be much more visibility on what was shipped, what's pending, and are you avoiding stockouts and meeting customer demand in this world. So all of these things are becoming much more important as the tariffs kick in, and this sort of becomes the new normal for a lot of companies across. As we go to the next slide, we can go ahead and talk about what exactly is the control tower, because a lot of these solutions that we've built on our side will help customers navigate these supply chain complexities, right? So as we go on to the next slide, we can talk about what the control tower is. It basically provides an end-to-end visibility to customers all the way from purchase order to where the shipment is delivered. Secondly, it helps you optimize performance. And by that, I mean we are building tools, or we've built tools that help customers look across their different shipments and optimize how you can ship across modes to minimize your costs while meeting your transit times. Third thing is reduction of costs. Of course, as you start optimizing your performance and meeting transit times, you also maximize what you're sending across your consolidations, and that's why you're working towards reducing your costs. And then a bunch of different SLAs that you have across your suppliers, your carriers, your freight forwarders, and your overall supply chain to drive predictability and ensure that you're sort of meeting your demand. So think of the control tower as your supply chain concierge that is going to help you across all of these uh, different levers. I'll explain the entire process a little bit more in detail as we head to the next slide. So on the next slide, you see, imagine if you're a phone manufacturer who's, selling phones in America, and as your orders consumers start buying phones, you want to place an order. So you place a purchase order with the factory who's based, for example, in China. And so these purchase orders, when they're placed, you might say, I want a phone of, color A with 20 in number. And that time, the supplier says, I can only provide you with 18 phones, and I can do it by this date. This back and forth that happens between the consignee and the supplier is this order collaboration feature, which is something that we provide on our order management system. So you get an order, as a supplier gets an order from the consignee, then they agree or disagree on when and how much quantity they can ship, and that's happening, and that visibility is happening on our order management system. That's the first step. Once you have all these orders placed, then as a second step, you actually have an optimization tool that looks across all your orders and decides, should we ship an FCL, an LCL, or a buyer's consolidation shipment? And we've built proprietary tools that allow you to make these decisions in order to meet your transit times as well as you minimize your costs. And so that's the second part of the tooling that we have built as part of the control tower. Once the cost minimization and the decision on FCL, LCL, and buyers consolidations done, then on behalf of our customers, doesn't matter whether it's a Flexport managed shipment or a shipment that's being booked on an NVO or a BCO contract, we will help you make those bookings with all the three options via our booking management system. So that's the sort of the fourth system that we have that helps you sort of work. And then end to end, the visibility aspect, you can track and trace all your shipments from the purchase order all the way till delivery throughout this value chain, right? So that's why the orders flow seamlessly throughout our customer system. And this is exactly what we are trying to build as part of our control tower. Over the next few slides, we will have multiple people on our team talk about some of the examples on how they've sort of helped our customers do, get more visibility and improve their supply chain management. So moving on to the next slide, we can sort of talk about the next example, and we have Eche here. Hi, Eche.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, CK. And thanks for the overview. All right, everyone. So now that we've seen the broader control tower view, we will now take a closer look at the different examples, different products. We will start off with supply chain optimization. The challenge that many companies face is clear. There's constant market volatility, there are rising costs, there are increasingly more complex supplier networks. We've discussed about those just earlier. These conditions make optimization harder, especially when teams lack real-time visibility. The result often we see is suboptimal mode selection, missed consolidation opportunities, and higher cost. So with supply chain, what supply chain optimization helps solve is by taking a consulting style data-driven approach, we are trying to analyze our clients' actual shipment data to identify smarter ways to consolidate freight, plan routings, ideally reduce spend and emissions. Once those opportunities are identified, we work with our clients to translate them into operational guidelines that can be built into our systems. So we don't want these just to be recommendations, just insights. They actually become a part of our operating procedures, execution process. So let's say we identified an opportunity for buyers consolidation. We then make sure these requirements, all of the routes, routing guides, the container types you would like to use, the utilization requirements, all of those are configured in the system so that these consolidations opportunities are captured in real life.
So, Eche, I wanted to make a point here. It's not like we are just doing the analysis and we don't see the results out. We've actually seen a lot of these analysis turn into real results, and we've seen some customers achieve between 10 to 20% of savings on their logistics costs, and sometimes even meaningful savings on their environmental emissions as they start using some of these tools around supply chain optimization. So I think it's a very beneficial feature as we look at customers with enough volume to consolidate better.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And the beauty here is it's grounded in each client's data. So the outcomes, like you said, are both realistic and achievable, and we can measure those outcomes in the end as well.
No, exactly. And the thing is that this is not something that you just do once and you forget about it. We have a live optimizer, so as people start bringing in more complexities in the supply chain, the supplier landscape shifts, the optimization methodology also changes, and the output changes. So you have to keep doing it constantly to ensure you're getting the best results.
Yes, definitely. It's really a living model. So as what worked for you 6 months ago might not work right now. So when there are big changes in the supply chain, we always recommend to keep revisit supply chain optimization analysis.
Yeah, and I think this is a crucial part of it because you can hire a supply chain consultant, and they will give you a piece of paper with a study in it, how to optimize it. But the real issue is how do you implement it, and you want to do that on real production data, right? So this makes actually your analysis real time, and therefore you can actually implement it real time. So if a supply chain consultant comes with a deck, you might actually get half of the results. Here you get much closer to the full impact of the analysis, because you can run it on your supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we're talking about the implementation part of it, we can quickly review how the process actually works. So it starts by identifying your company's goals and operational constraints. This might include some lead time thresholds, utilization requirements, service level expectations, all of those things we work with you to understand. These parameters then shape how we build our optimization model and identify the opportunities. From there, we analyze the historical shipments data to identify more efficient options, whether those are smarter modes, routing changes, different consolidation strategies that we can build together. And finally, and that's a key part, we work with you to turn those into action. So we really build them into our workflows so they're repeatable and measurable. So this is really not just an analysis for the sake of reporting. This is a structured process to turn visibility into optimization, and then optimization into measurable results in the end. And we can look at a recent example, actually, from one of our clients, a valued client, Global Electric. We ran an analysis for them a few months ago on their historical shipment data, and uncovered some clear opportunities to improve efficiency and reduce cost. Through our analysis, of course, they're running a global supply chain. They have a large supplier network across the globe. So we were able to identify potential shipment groupings and apply further buyers consolidation strategies for them. And in the end, we actually identified a potential to reduce their LCL shipments by around 30%, which in the end translates into around 10% reduction in logistics costs. And we were able to do that just by looking at the 2024 volumes.
Yeah, and I'm pretty close to this client, and they have a pretty complex setup of their supplier network, which is across a lot of our clients, and will be more and more across our clients, right? The highway from China to Long Beach, it will no longer exist, right? It will be byways that start in everywhere in Southeast Asia. So there's a real opportunity for consolidation, because shipments are becoming smaller on average, and here in this case, there was a lot of opportunity. But it was, you could see it in plain sight, but it was not that easy to implement. And with this tool, it became discoverable, and therefore they were able to reap the benefits of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This indeed is a strategic tool that directly influences how we manage these shipments, the customer experience directly. So the objective here is to transform these insights into, like I said, actionable, repeatable processes, supported by the right tools, of course.
I keep wondering how many customers have actually sort of used these sort of tools to optimize their supply chain. in the case of Globe Electric, they were able to get much more predictable flows because we were involved in the study, and they were able to manage their supply chain better. So I think this is something that most customers, whoever have complex supply chains, it's sort of now a must-have to do, to be able to have a view of their supply chain and be able to look at consolidation opportunities on their side.
Yeah, definitely agree, CK. And, in this kind of a market, it's definitely a key differentiator. All right. Now we can actually look at the second piece of the puzzle here, our second example, second product, order management. So in today's turbulent market, many companies are still dealing with limited PO or SKU level visibility. What that leads to is planning errors, delayed shipments, in some cases even to stockouts, simply because the teams can't see what's happening early on to course correct. So on top of that, they're also managing region-specific shipping rules. They're coordinating across different time zones. All of these things in the end add to the complexity. So what the order management system here enables is a central platform for order creation, tracking, and collaboration. So we try to bring logistics, planning, all of those supplier updates in one view, which is very powerful. And this is more than just the visibility. Clients can actually, configure the business rules, so they can really build the system up based on how they would like to manage their workflows. Use supplier scorecards to measure performance, access real-time order level analytics. All of these drive accountability and better decision making in the end.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what's important here is, we're going from shipments to inventory, right? And it sounds that simple, but a lot of customers, when you're talking to them, when they're not having an order management system, they have questions like, did the shipper actually ship, the quantity that I ordered? Right? Can I actually reconcile, what I ordered versus what actually has been shipped in a simple way, right? Is my inventory on the move, right? is ultimately the question. And then the other question is like, what is my warehouse receiving and what can I make available for sale, right? And not when I open the container, but when it's on the move and with a timeline to it. So it's that simple ASN, that advanced service notice question that everyone wants to answer. So order management answers pretty basic questions, but they're so fundamental to run your business because it ultimately turns shipments into inventory.
No, Sanne, you make a great point, because I was looking at one of our customers that we were speaking with, and they have over $100 million in logistics costs a year. But at the same time, the supplier management process right now is through Excel sheets. And so a lot of times the questions that come to their mind is, what is the performance of this supplier? How many suppliers do they have? And that is also sometimes not clear to them. So having a system like this is going to be extremely beneficial, because it helps you everything, visibility all the way from PO to when the shipment's delivered to the warehouse. So exactly right.
Yeah, I was actually this morning with a customer here in London, and they have 20,000 plus SKUs. So very distributed supply base, and they had the process pretty well down, but it was all run on Excel sheets, and it was just like, it's too much work to keep it updated. We know how to manage the suppliers, but to keep it updated is impossible. And so they were very interested in implementing our order management system just to manage the vendor scorecards.
Right.
Yes, indeed. And that client was also a bit more concerned about the end-to-end visibility, really having that one view. So it really ties quite well to our order management system. All right, we can actually now take a look at how this works on the platform. So when we log in, we see a clear overview of purchase orders all the way down to the SKU level. You can easily track the key dates, like when the cargo is ready, when it needs to arrive, all of the different quantities, which helps with planning and avoiding delays. If an order is already linked to a shipment, the status is shown right away, so you actually don't have to check multiple systems to see what's moving. One powerful tool I would say is real-time messaging. With so much uncertainty in global shipping, being able to message your suppliers instantly is a game changer. You can make changes, request holds, and all of those things will be tracked here, as you can see on the dates. Now, if we move on to the order management settings, These let you control how and when your suppliers can book shipments. So these are especially important in situations like tariff changes that we talked about earlier, where you might want to block or delay certain shipments. So you can set rules to notify or require approval, or even block shipments completely, depending on the supplier or the region. So let's say you're shipping from China to US and a new tariff is being discussed. You might want to pause those shipments while letting others continue. So all of these different fields that you see right now on the screen actually allow you to make those changes and really focus on the parts where you would like on your supply chain. Now, on the analytics side, you get visibility into how each supplier is performing and how timely they are. You know, whether they follow the rules, whether there might be some issues. This analytics really helps you address problems early on and have more productive conversations with your vendors. So overall, I would say this part of the platform, this order management part, really brings visibility, communication, and control, all centered around the purchase order. And now we can actually see how this played out for one of our clients in real world. So we will actually go back to the Globe Electric example. We've run a supply chain optimization analysis for them, but they're also a user of our order management tool. And what we've seen with them, and honestly with many of our clients who have large supplier networks, we've seen firsthand how having a centralized platform can really simplify the communication and supplier collaboration, especially when you're coordinating across a large supplier base. By using order management tool, our customer was able to gain valuable time back. So tasks like order tracking, status updates, all of those manual updates the supply chain teams need to do, which used to take a few hours, is now only taking about 10 to 15 minutes. So this is, I think, a really great example of how these tools don't only make supply chain easier to manage, but this actually gives quite valuable time back to the team so they can focus on higher value work.
Yeah, and Eche, it was just not about, replacing their existing systems. When we did this analysis, the goal in our mind was to also provide end-to-end visibility through the order management system to the client. That's what we were sort of aiming for. I think Globe Electric really benefited from it. And that's sort of one thing that I'd like to add.
Yeah, definitely. And they're now in full control of their supply chain from the very get-go. All right.
And we have to thank them for sharing this as a public example, because it's always that's always really nice if customers let us write a testimonial about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're sending our thanks from here. All right. Then building on to what we've discussed with order management, now moving on to the next piece and the last piece of the puzzle here, our last example, booking management. So here, if we look at the challenge again, we often see here is that companies struggle with agility. So they're managing bookings manually, across emails, across a lot of different spreadsheets, without a full view of their contracts, allocation, carrier performance. This makes it difficult to make quick, informed decisions, especially when the market conditions change overnight and the bookings become more reactive. So in order to have a more proactive approach, we actually designed a booking management to centralize and streamline the entire booking process. So we start off with, we have an allocation management dashboard that helps ensure that the teams are staying within the contracted space and have a good view of their contracted space. Actually, we have performance dashboards for both carriers and shipments. These give teams the data that they need to manage their bookings more proactively and not only do things after things go wrong. So we will again look at a platform walkthrough and see how it works in real life. So we start off with the allocation management dashboard, which gives a clear overview of your contracted space. You can see what's used, what's pending. This helps teams make smarter decisions. You can filter on a lane, region or lane. So let's say you're focused on tariff exposure. Again, you might want to look at Shanghai to Los Angeles and see which carriers they're using and how much space you've actually left. That makes it easier to pause or shift bookings if needed. You can also view the allocations by time window. So you can look at, let's say, next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That's helpful when planning ahead. Now, looking at the carrier performance, this gives visibility into how well your carriers are meeting your expectations. Are they responding on time, issuing shipping orders on time, accepting bookings, what's their rejection rates? All of these insights are especially useful when you're reviewing contracts. So going into contract season, it's definitely good to have these insights ready, which you can get it from the carrier performance dashboard here. Then we also have a shipment execution dashboard here. This is more of a detailed reporting tool. If you want to look in detail the shipment level data, do deeper analysis, this will be the place to go to. Now, finally, there is our Insights Builder, our AI tool, which we are all very excited about. Here, you can just simply type a request, let's say, show me shipments that departed in the past month. And then the system basically gives you a prompt back just to clarify what you specifically meant. You can simply copy and paste the question that you want an answer to. So you want to understand the FCL shipments, for instance, which ones have departed. Then the system within a few seconds will actually build a report out for you. This really is a helpful tool that saves quite some valuable minutes and even hours sometimes to get this reporting instantly. Once you have this report, you can turn this into a chart if you would like to. You can follow up with certain questions. And if you want to turn this into a chart and save it to a dashboard, that's also possible. So this makes your planning not just faster, but this smarter and gives you answers that normally take hours to pull together. So all of these tools really give you that visibility and flexibility.
Actually, I have to add a couple of points around the shipment execution dashboard, carrier performance dashboard, and the allocation dashboards. Right now, what we were able to show here were mostly analytics across different carriers. But in the coming months, as customers have a mix of NVOs as well as carriers, we will be able to show the data across NVOs and carriers where it makes sense. And at the same time, when we talk about the shipment execution dashboard specifically, think of it as a log that actually keeps track of exactly what activity has happened in order to make this shipment booking possible. What that means is, let's say if we booked a shipment 3 times and we got rejected by the carrier, you can actually track that very well and then see that the attempt was made, what time the attempt was made, why was it rejected, when was it rejected, so that you have a very clear view even on the performance of Flexport and how we have performed against the request that you had on the booking side, right? So that's sort of very powerful in my mind, because customers really enjoy looking at that data, and more importantly are able to track that the booking was made on time and this carrier or this NVO or even Flexport did not perform according to expectations.
When we demoed this to a large importer of recreational equipment, let's call it like that, not too long ago, he told me, he was like, okay, you just freed up my Friday, because that's what he was doing on Friday, looking at how his carriers were performing, whether he used his contracts, whether he was actually delivering to his carriers. And he said, yeah, that was basically my Friday. Now it's all digitized. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. There's quite some valuable savings, and there are actually dedicated team members who pull this reporting, spend all of their day trying to understand where the allocations sit. So we really want to give that time back to the team members there and focus on the strategic decisions instead. And actually, from that example, we do have a great example of this as well, where some valuable time and minutes were saved. So Aviab, they're a valued customer, again, a global consumer goods company. They are an active user of our booking management tool. And before working with Flexport, their teams were actually heavily reliant on email-based bookings, lack of visibility into shipment statuses. They were doing a lot of manual reporting. This led to frequent delays, manual documentation, and even unnecessary storage costs because the planning was not there. By moving to a centralized platform with an automated delay reporting, those transparent booking workflows, Eviop was actually able to save on quite some valuable minutes on an annual level, so save their Fridays indeed, and they were actually reduce also storage costs here. So there's really, this tool was able to give the teams the confidence that they need to adapt to changes and really have a good booking overview. All right. Well, with that, I will actually then pass it back to Sanne for the closing words and the recap.
Great. And it means before I go to the closing words, it means also this is your moment to put in your questions so that we can address those in the Q&A. I saw a couple of them already coming in, but we'd love to get more of you. Okay, so sorry for that. The recap. The tariffs are here going to stay, right? The turmoil is going to stay. The next, let's say 75 days might be a little less chaotic, but it will come back. We will have a lot of webinars on this. We, on average, do one in every 2 weeks on the tariffs. So stay tuned for that. It's either next week or the week after that we'll have another webinar. But also all our old webinars are available for download. Supply chain complexity is the new normal, right? The highway from Shenzhen to LA is no longer existing. You will source from multiple locations, but you will also store in multiple locations to make sure that you can actually deliver in 2 days to your final customer. Therefore, we need smarter control, and that starts at the PO. You want to have visibility on your inventory rather than on your shipment. You want to have it on the SKU level, and you want to have it fast so that you can make decisions very quickly. And therefore, the Flexport Control Tower is this layer on top of all logistics service providers to make sure that you have a full visibility across all of them. Flexport can be one of them. It can be carrier direct. It can be other forwarders. We are just making sure that there is a layer on top of it that has all the data in the same place so that you are empowered to make quick decisions and stay in control. Good. Next slide. Before we go to the Q&A, the three of us will all be present at Transport Logistics Munich in a month from now. So if you want to meet us in person on the control tower, we're very happy to take meetings there. Just reach out to your Flexport contact and we'll set up a meeting at TLM. All right, let me get the questions. First question, that's one for me. Why could other companies not build a control tower in the same way Flexport has done right now? I've been asking myself these questions for 11 years. We were also first to market with a map. It's not that hard to put a map on your app. I think it's just listening to we keep on listening to our customers, right? Our customers all figured out the first indication for us for a control tower was during COVID. And that's, customers wanted to have not all their eggs in the same basket, but wanted to have all their data in the same place. So that was for us a call to action. But also, with Flexport growing and maturing, we've also onboarded larger customers that have quite a bit of direct carrier business, and they have that similar need. So it became a very clear need the longer we were in the game. And we decided this is the right moment to launch this. Next question. Is there a particular type or size of client that sees the greatest savings and benefits from supply chain optimization analysis?
Yeah.
You want to take that one?
Yes, and I can add in. So, of course, this kind of analysis can be varied from all customer sizes. However, when there are customers who are extremely small in size with intermittent shipments, at that point in time, consolidation benefits are not as high, right? So as we look at customers who have over 1,000 Ts of volume, those customers will benefit even more because their volumes are spread across. They have multiple different small and large shipment sizes, and then combining them makes a lot more sense. And even larger customers, I think, will benefit even more. What also is important to see is the commodity type, because in certain commodity types, it doesn't make sense to send buyers consolidation or LCL shipments. Then FCL makes the most sense. So that's another consideration when we look at customer types.
Yeah. And in order to add on to that, actually, like when we look at the studies that we've done so far, we performed quite some studies with clients. We see it across all client sizes. So it's really not just, one type of client that will be eligible for a study like this. We recommend everyone to actually, reach out to the different teams or really look at your supply chain this strategically. But to what CK mentioned here, of course, when it becomes a bit more complex on the supply chain side, then the savings become a bit more visible.
Can you also drill a little deeper into, if you're not having, and this is one specific question here, if you're not having consolidation opportunities, where do we see the value creation or the savings coming from for Control Tower?
Right. I think the consolidation opportunities are just one part of where you see value, right? There are multiple ways, firstly, to optimize your supply chain. In this, we can take a look at how we can move Incoterms with certain customers. So we've seen that as an opportunity. Changing PO sizes is another opportunity we see. These are all factors around supply chain optimization, and also changing the mode mix. So if you are moving a lot more, air volume, can we shift to LCL or ocean volume? So that happens. And then at the same time, looking at container sizes, right? Whether it's a 40-foot or you're shipping a lot of 20-foot containers, can we consolidate and move them to 40-foot? So that's part of just the supply chain optimization. But in Control Tower, across the board, visibility from PO all the way to delivery is one key aspect. Carrier performance management across all your different carriers is another key aspect that you look at. And then at the same time, having SKU level details on when, what, how it's shipped, and having that coordination together with the supplier and managing the suppliers is the third aspect that you'd want to look at. So there are several different benefits. Supply chain optimization, I would say, is just one of those. A lot of customers are using our tools without even using supply chain optimization.
And I think the other one that you're forgetting is, like, you're not paying software as a service licenses here, all right? It is replacing a lot of ERP functionality. But maybe that's a bigger question for you, CK. How does this compare with an ERP?
Right. So,
or TMS.
Yeah. Control Tower, actually, if you are, a lot of customers that we have run on Oracle or SAP and have their own ERPs installed. And this is just it augments the system. So the way we work is we can digest data from the ERP via EDIs. So we get purchase order data from all the different customers that we have. Either we do a manual Excel upload, or we get this data through EDI or APIs that we've built together with them. We will process the data, work as a layer, and then send back the data to the ERP as the customers need it. So the milestone data as well as the ASN data is sent back to the customers depending on their requirements. So we are actually sort of fitting right in, and the customers don't need to, delete or not use the ERP. We are sort of had an addition on top.
Yeah, and I think what's really important to emphasize is this is built on top of our operation system, right? This is built on top of our freight forwarding application. So it uses the same integrations with carriers. It uses the same automation for booking management. It uses the same software for visibility. So what you won't get with an ERP is the execution, the operational execution, right? What you get is the data in a nice place. So we can integrate with ERPs to get you that data also in your ERP. But we are more than an ERP. We're actually running the shipments. It's a TMS, right? So and it's underpinned by our freight forwarding application that uses exactly the same technology.
Right.
A couple of questions on whether you can utilize these services if some shipments or lanes are shipped with other forwarders outside Flexport. The answer is yes. That's absolutely possible. That's what of the reasons why we build it. You want to have all your data in one place, but you don't always want to use Flexport for everything. There is a case that you don't use Flexport for any of the physical transportation, right? If you do everything carrier direct, right? We could only be that control tower. Typically, we combine it with customs to give a nice let's order to customs, and then we can take care of some NVO overflow volume. But that's a very clear use case. What we see more common is large customers having just a couple of direct carrier contracts. They use a couple of forwarders or one forwarder, and that could be us or that could be somebody else. Let's see. Yeah, I think one question is around the tariffs and the impact on business, which is, do you already see reduced sailings between China and the US? I think the answer is very clear, yes, right? We see a big reduction in bookings in our client base. This is not only for us. All the carriers that we're talking to say exactly the same. They see it from their direct customers as well, from their forwarding customers. There's a big drop-off in bookings from China. We do see a surge in bookings from other locations, primarily Vietnam. But of course, that is not covering the downfall from China. So overall, the volumes on the Trans-Pacific are down and are down quite a bit. What this has as a result, there's a lot of sailings have been canceled, right? And there will be more and more being canceled. So we're sitting a little bit in, a situation that is a bit comparable to the early days of COVID, where everyone anticipates that demand is falling off the cliff, and as a result, supply also is reducing dramatically. The reality is this can change with a tweet, and that would lead to a lot of volatility. But the current understanding, and that's what customers are working against, is that bookings from China are held or reduced significantly, and as a result, the sailings are also reduced significantly. Let's see, because I think we're through almost all of our questions right now. There's one more question here. Is how do we communicate with Flexport? Is this all online, or do we have a customer service contact? No, we are a full stack freight forwarder or booking management agent. We have account management, we have operations. So there's real humans talking to you and helping you, understand what the solution, how the solution works, whether it's applicable for you, how it drives value, but also operate the solution for you. So if there's anything going wrong with a shipment, there's always an account manager that will pick up the phone and try to solve your problem. So yes, although we try to bring the experience as much as possible online, that is for you to make it easier to digest. That's not because there are no humans involved. I want to thank you today for your attendance. If you have additional questions, please reach out to your Flexport expert or meet us at TLM in Munich in a month's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Yeah. Bye-bye.